This is my first audio project, so I'm a novice in some ways, but I can try to share what I understand. And of course, it's a very rapidly evolving space. I think, in general, there's sort of two models for how podcasts find revenue. One of them is more like what you would think of in the film and TV world, which is that you create a product and you license it to a subscription service like Audible or Spotify, others that have a subscription service. And just like HBO acquiring your film, licensing your film, they're cutting you a check for the permission to distribute your media that you've created, your audio, to their subscribing audience, and they're getting revenue from the subscription, and they're just cutting you a check. And that's more like film and television. The other and more prevalent, form of revenue in audio is through advertising, which is really essentially a function of the downloads, the number of downloads, the number of times that those ads that are embedded into the audio are being consumed. And the distributors and companies and advertisers, that you use a dynamic model wherein they can insert, pull out, put in, you have ad breaks in your content, and they can serve different advertisements into them. Advertisers are often interested in having the hosts of these shows read the ads or speak the ads, because it tends to keep people a little bit more engaged rather than the sort of like, I'm tuning out now because, it's a commercial break. And so that can look a lot of different ways. If you are entirely self-distributing the audio, then you would be responsible for finding the advertisers, and serving the ads into the podcast, and then you would be recouping essentially 100% of the revenue from that. If you are, as we are with our show Pack One Bag, working with an audio network, essentially, in our case, Lemonada Media, they are doing the advertising sales. They're managing all of the advertising. And so they take a cut. A 30% cut is pretty standard, with 70% of the advertising revenue going to us, the creators. I suppose the other big picture when it comes particularly to audio that is more production heavy, which is to say not an interview type show, not a sort of two people and a microphone, but involves documentary storytelling, on the ground investigative reporting, heavier in terms of post-production, original scoring, sound design, that kind of stuff. True crime could sort of fit into that, which of course is a popular genre in audio. There, for the most part, a lot of the funding for those projects are coming from the distributors, are coming from the audio networks. They're, Ray, go to them. You're like, I've got an idea for a podcast. They say, great, we're going to fund it. You go make it. They're going to distribute it. We chose to take a different path, which was to treat this very much like an independent film. And so we raised the money and the funding for our project independently through a combination of equity investors and grants and donations from mission-aligned organizations. And then we brought the first episode of this project to Tribeca, which now has an audio storytelling festival as part of its larger, well-known film festival. That was last year, in June of 2023. And with the sort of lift out of that, went on to finish the subsequent 9 episodes of our 10-episode series. That helped bring in finishing funds, and also helped in our conversation as we brought our independent project, just like we would, just for example, as I made the Running with Beto film independently, we financed it independently and then sold the film to HBO. In this case, we made Pack One Bag independently, and we found our distribution partner, Lemonada Media, when we were essentially ready to bring the show out into the world. And so that's where the revenue, is coming from. And yes, the economics of podcasting are very different depending on what kind of podcast you're making. There's we say podcast, all that really means is a piece of audio that's on demand, right? So the content of what it is could be any number of things. And you could have something that's quite low production intensive, like the conversation that we're having that isn't requiring a whole lot of travel or crew or equipment or what have you. Or in our case with Pack One Bag, where we took 3 long production trips to Italy. We were in Paris, we were in New York, we were in Boston. We were recording a lot of tape on the ground, and then we had to do a tremendous amount of research, writing, and then really working through how we were going to shape these episodes just as we would a documentary film series. And so that post-production process was highly intensive. And so we did need to raise significant funds to be able to pay and compensate all the members of the team, including the voice talent, Stanley Tucci, who you mentioned.